Yeah. So, anyways, I like it here. It's nice. Okay, I'll just start here. Let me see. Make sure you're in frame. So maybe you can start just by introducing yourselves and maybe where we are and what you do.
You go first.
My name's Todd Gladfelter, and my wife Cindy Ross, and we're in New Ringgold, Pennsylvania, which is north of Reading, east of Harrisburg, along the Appalachians.
There's a little Schuylkill River is nearby, which is at the base of the mountain. So after Todd and I hiked the Appalachian Trail 40 and 39 years ago, we decided that we wanted to live near it because it was where we first fell in love with the natural world. So we used to live on the other side of the mountains under the volunteers in the National Parks program, where we ran a hostel on the Appalachian Trail and then would come over here and build our log house. So we wanted to live near the trail and live near the mountains and the river.
So this house behind you, you built yourselves.
We went to log building school for 10 days.
That was in Minnesota, and then we spent 4 years, and a lot of that it was part-time, and we went hiking 1 year for a whole summer, so, but it was a 4-year project. But that enabled us to build a log house. It's not really a cabin, it's a house. And
it's
for
not a kid.
for $20,000, that's the well, the septic, the electric, everything.
So for instance, we have like 40 windows, and only 3 of them are new, which were skylights. My uncle had a demolition company, so for years we started to gather stuff. So, like a beveled glass front door and furniture that we pulled out of homes, and bricks for our chimney and slate for our roof. We just gathered it. We rented a house that was larger than the tiny cabin that we rented in to store our stuff.
Yeah, and it was mainly because we were in love with long distance hiking, because we had both done the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail, and we wanted to keep hiking, and then that turned into biking. And if you're in debt and you need a full-time job, then you're kind of tied down, and you can't take 3 months off to go hiking or bike touring, so that was the whole plan, and it kind of worked out for the last 40 years, So we'll see what
We pretty much segued into long-distance cycling on the Continental Divide Trail. So we took our little kids across the Rockies, starting when they were 1 and 3. And every year we went out, we bought our own llamas, and we trailered them out, and we backpacked 500 miles as they were growing up. Then when we got to the Colorado-New Mexican border, the whole state of New Mexico the trail is pretty much on the road, and water sources were 40 miles apart. So we couldn't do that because we could only do 10 miles a day with our kids, and we couldn't carry water for the llamas. So we got tandem mountain bikes and trailers, and we rode the Great Divide mountain bike trail through New Mexico because they had just opened it. It was like the first year. And then the first hour or two, we did 27 miles.
downhill.
And it was taking us 2.5 days.
This
and
is really fun.
And that was it. Then we started long distance cycling.
Yeah, that's hilarious. If I can backtrack a little bit, how did you two meet initially?
Well, I hiked the Appalachian Trail in 78 and 79. I broke my foot, so I had to do it in 2 halves. So I moved to this area because I wanted to be near the trail. And I used to go through the town of Port Clinton, which is where the trail goes through, and look to see if there were any hikers there that I could do some trail magic to and feed them and let them have a shower. And this young man was there, and I brought him home. He didn't stay. He was young. He was only 19. I had to wait till he grew up a little bit, and then we got together. He was on the Pacific Crest Trail then, and I was on the Pacific Crest Trail, not together, and he broke the same foot that I broke on the AT. And then we got together after that, and then hiked the second half of the trail together.
Oh my goodness. Why the broken feet, though? How does that happen?
Well, mine was on the Pacific Crest. I was trying to do the whole thing, and it was like a wicked snow year. And so we were on snow all the time, and it was all mushy, and we were I put on crampons, and I probably shouldn't, and all the snow balled up under, and I just slid down, and I went into a tree well the way that it melts down, you know, and my foot hit the tree, and I fell down like upside down in the tree well with my foot up above, and I was like, oh my God. So
he broke his instep.
Yeah, so I had to hike 14 miles out to get to a road, and you know, I thought, oh well.
But you you don't think of broken bones though with like hiking usually, you know? It's like biking.
Biking. Yeah, biking you could wreck a lot worse, but
I had a stress fracture because my partner left me and I was lonely because I'm an extrovert, and most long distance hikers, I don't know about cyclists, but most hikers are introverts. So I was lonely, so I tried to go fast because I was in like this void. There were a lot of hikers in front and behind, and the trail was overgrown a lot, and so I kept tripping until I broke my foot from that, and then I had to go home.
Okay.
I created what I needed was to go home and be with people, and then I went back the next year and did the second half.
Okay. So you were willing to break your foot just for the purpose of this.
Well, you know, we do what we need to.
How was hiking the trail as a woman alone? Because I'm asked all the time, like from women that say, like, is it safe for me to go on a bike trip by myself or something? And part of me thinks I don't know how to answer this.
Well, I wasn't alone very long. I made sure of that. The only time I was alone were those couple days where I managed to break my foot. Then I came home and healed, and then went back and found other people to hike with. And then the second half, I had a woman friend that I hiked the last 1,000 miles with. So I made sure I wasn't alone very long.
Okay, and same on the Pacific Crest Trail too? Like...
Oh no, I put out a notice for people, and I had up to 13 people. We had this little, the chapter of my book is called Cindy's Circus because there's so many different personalities. So the first half of the PCT, I had a big group, and then the second half we were together.
Yeah, but then you're looking back in the years where through hiking was
there was like 12, 15 people that started it back then. Now they say there's 4,000 that started the PCT.
So the amount of people on the trail,
and those numbers were only that high for the AT up until Cheryl Strade's Wild book came out.
Okay.
So I mean, there's been a few incidents this year on both the AT and the PC and the Continental Divide of weirdos out there.
And then there was a murder on the AT.
It's still such a small percentage that I wouldn't hesitate telling people to go out there by themselves. I mean, it's such a...
If I was an introvert, you know, there's a lot of women that hike by themselves, and I guess cycle too.
The biggest thing is they'd be like this group of guys like flocking on them, but
some girls have to hide.
So you'd have to be pretty, you know, to hold your own, you know, you'd have to
tell them, leave me alone.
Yeah. Well, like I've biked around the world, and I've been doing it for almost 20 years now, and in that 20 years I've come across maybe like 3 solo women on bicycles. That's it. You know, hundreds of solo men.
Wow.
But like seriously, like so usually if I run into a woman, they're with their husband or the boyfriend or another
So maybe
girlfriend.
Darren, maybe there's a lot more solo women hiking because you're not dealing with the public nearly as much. So you're not interacting with people where you could feel uncomfortable, and you're not in situations where you know they see you and they could, you know, do potential harm, you know, on the trail. It's only when you come into town, and a trail town is used to hikers, so you probably are a whole lot more vulnerable by yourself on a bike if you're a woman.
What are some of the similarities and differences between hiking and biking?
It's fast.
That's the main difference?
Well, it's still, you want to think lightweight, you know.
Well,
and it's still the same basically the same camping equipment.
I think it's the food.
Yeah, you always
because like on the Great Divide mountain bike trail, we never had to carry more than 2 or 3 days worth of food, and you could live without a stove. And if you know, because we like to camp, we like to have dinners at night when we're backpacking because it's like comfort food. But, you know, if you're going into town and you can get a big burger and homemade French fries, there's just no way you'd eat mac and cheese. So, you know, that was great that we had fabulous food frequently. But Todd used to say when we did the New Mexico Continental Divide, the Great Divide, that we were basically going from 1 minute market or town to the next. That's the goal, to get the Doritos and the soda when it's hot. And not that the in-between wasn't wonderful, but it's a different kind of goal. It isn't like a mountaintop, like when you're hiking or something like that. So, and every time we took a break, when we needed to take a break, especially when we had the kids, when you have a need, you take a break. So we found ourselves taking breaks along the road, you know, in the ditch. So it wasn't always the best place to rest and have...
Well, you know, from hiking the Continental Divide, now cycling it, we were disappointed that we couldn't
stay up.
We knew we were on the ridges hiking and having the best alpine views, and now we were down in on the Forest Service roads, and you really got to watch the potholes in the gravel, and when you do get to look around, you're looking up at the mountains where we were hiking. So that was one thing.
That was frustrating.
Although it's still gorgeous and it's still unbelievable camping and scenery, it isn't as high alpine
and see, that part was part of the problem too, is because when we came down it got hot and we had no shade. So, and we knew that, you know, like in the San Juans on the Continental Divide Trail, you spend 2 weeks at 12,000 feet. Well, we spent 20 minutes.
Yeah, you kind of climbed up to the pass and down the
So,
other side.
and we missed that. And it's more gorgeous up above, we think, because when you're down in the sagebrush, I mean, then you start looking for places to swim. So it's a different kind of mentality. And maybe if we weren't long distance hikers first, we wouldn't miss that, because we wouldn't know any better. But
yeah, we found it interesting that most of the people cycling, they came from the cycling thing. So they were like,
they might have been road cyclists
the whole
before they did the Great
wilderness,
Divide.
the whole wilderness thing,
they didn't know how to do that. Yeah,
freaked them out.
And that was like, so brand new to them. I mean, they had they didn't know.
And for us, the wilderness part was, that was like what we were used to.
Yeah.
It was just a cycling aspect, which is, you know, learning to fix a bike, which,
right,
you know.
We really like the Great Divide Mountain Bike Trail.
It's great.
In fact, we just took our nephews out backpacking, and he was kind of whining because he wanted to be on a bike instead.
It's so nice sometimes to go fast, and when things are a little slow or boring hiking, it's like, it takes a long
like that
time.
C&O Canal, I cannot imagine hiking something like that.
Yeah.
But when I was in my early 30s, I started having this condition called piriformis syndrome. Your piriformis muscle is your hip rotator muscle, which is right where your hip belt sits on your backpack, and that muscle sits on your sciatica nerve. And so I discovered bike riding helps that, because it stretches it from bending over. And it was the last year, Darren, we did 250 miles backpacking, and I was in pain like the whole time. And then we got to the Colorado border and we got on our bikes, and in 5 minutes it disappeared.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so that's what we do. We're going to be long distance cyclists now, you know, for the most part.
Yeah. You're not the first person to tell me a story very similar to that. Seriously.
It's harder on your body to backpack, because we never have a problem getting off.
Yeah.
Since we like to walk anyway, you know, on the Great Divide, I think one day we had to cross the Continental Divide 5 times. And we're talking 26-mile climbs. And we don't know how to really go that light anyway. And so we walked. Sometimes we walked 12 miles. But I know there's some cyclists that would rather drop over dead before they would get off their bikes. And I want to get out of the saddle. It's like, what is wrong with that? You're still exercising. And it's hard to push a loaded bike up a steep mountain.
Yeah, pushing a bike up sometimes for 2 hours, it's kind of good, and then you get on top and it's like fast going down, so you make up the time.
Yeah.
And your upper body really gets a lot stronger pushing a loaded mountain bike.
Plus you can look around, you can talk, so we don't have a problem walking.
Yeah. How has like your adventures changed as you're getting older? Have you like, you kind of mentioned like maybe the
No, that was in my
know.
30s, and I'm
No,
63,
okay.
so,
Yeah, so
that's not recent at
so
all.
has it changed at all though in the last 30
No.
years? Or?
We'll find out when we go back to backpacking this summer.
It's the first time we're going backpacking in like 30
Well,
years.
Except last week.
Well, I
but
mean,
still.
we've done week-long trips. Like we
Yeah.
did the whole Torres del Paine in Patagonia, the whole circuit around there, and we did all the way across Isle Royale in Lake Superior, you know. So, and I took my veterans. I have a nonprofit for veterans. I took them out for a week, and we were fine. We just haven't done 400. We just don't know if we can get our packs that light because, you know, when I was on the AT, my pack weighed like 55, 60. When I was on the PCT, it weighed up to 70. And like in the White Mountains, if my pack was okay, we would throw in a 5-pound canned ham. So I don't know if we've learned. We're hoping that we got smarter.
Yeah. We don't like, you know, here's a couple apples, just throw them in, you know.
Yeah. But there are like a lot of 60-year-olds that can't walk up a flight of stairs.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Well, I don't feel any different
And
than I
there's-
do since I was 30.
There's a million old cyclists and hikers. There's 70-year-old
Oh yeah,
hikers and
we've seen more
backpackers.
older people on bikes, like on some of these rail trails that will stop and ride. Like we have a friend in Michigan in Traverse City, and they have 100 miles of paved trails there, and like everyone is like 70 and 80 up there that rides, and they're fast. Where were we just? And they were yelling at me because we did the Capitol Trail. It goes from Richmond, Virginia to Jamestown, which is the historic capital, for 52 miles. And we did 45 without stopping. And I just stopped all the way over on the right to take a picture. And some geezer went by, you know, pissed that I wasn't completely off the trail because they're speeding. They look like they're all training for something.
Yeah.
But no, we don't feel any different. I guess
think-
people think we're old, but we don't feel that way.
But
so.
what's the secret then? Why do you not feel any different and other people
My grandmother
are?
lived to be 102, and she just got sleepy and tired and went to bed, and that was it. And she said, "Stop moving, and you'll die."
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I mean, I work hard every day, my physical stuff all the time. You're going walking every day. I mean,
Ride my bike.
and we work all day long, which is sort of like hiking, where you hike all day, you cycle all day. It's, you know, it just builds up your stamina, and I think people just feel that they need to relax, and they need to treat themselves and relax and sit around.
yeah,
and
the creature comforts, and we
and
don't
we
even
just-
live like that anyway.
Yeah, we just want to keep doing more. So I think that's the whole thing is keep active and keep,
I'm not a big sitter. I hate to sit anyway. So
yeah.
I would just interviewed this one veteran for my new. I'm writing a new book about using long distance trails to heal from their war trauma. And this one guy, he's like 52, and he's just a beast the way he moves. And he goes, "I have 2 speeds: fast and stop." And that's the way he is. He stops about 10 o'clock, and then he falls asleep no matter where he's at, because that's the first time he stopped.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably the secret, is just to not stop moving. But it feels good to move, I think, you know.
Yeah. What about you two as a couple? Like, how do you get along on your trips?
Well,
Well,
we discover new things every year after 35 years.
It's like, well, it's backpacking and cycling. It's like a lot of times I want to go faster, and the whole key is then I take more weight to try to get her lighter. So
He's
she
been
can,
spending our whole married life trying to get me to go faster.
and
And I don't want
no
to.
matter how much I take, it doesn't work. But
I go as fast as I want to. And sometimes I'm fast, but sometimes I'm not. But I have other issues, like altitude bothers me more than him, and I get hot faster, so then could get heat exhaustion faster. And he's like, you know, what's wrong? How come we can't keep going? Like, we had a little issue last year, because every year something happened on the Great Divide, Darren. Like one year, the first year, he doesn't like to drink water unless it's freezing cold. So he gets dehydrated. So while we were on the Great Divide Mountain Bike Trail, he wakes me up and he goes, my heart's going crazy. And I put my hand on his chest and it was stopping. Then it was going fast. Then it was going slow. And I go, whoa. Our daughter's in Zambia, you know, yelling at us on the phone on WhatsApp to get to the hospital. And so they were like hooked him up all day to try to figure out what was wrong with him. It was just low electrolytes and dehydration. Okay. The next year, I got bit by some kind of insect. The night before we left, I was bike riding, and by the time we got to Montana, it was so big and swollen. I had staph and cellulitis and a high fever. They put me in the hospital in Montana. They stabbed it to see if any pus came out. Then they put me on doxycycline in case it was a tick, and I wasn't allowed to go in the sun. Well, here we're going across the Great Divide, the basin, which is desert for 100 miles. I'm getting 2-degree burns on my mouth. I walk into a pharmacy, and the pharmacist said, you're going to lose your lips. You have 2nd-degree burns. And I said, what does that even look like, losing your lips? And I go, okay, we're done. Then last year, our daughter was in India on a Fulbright for a year, and I went to visit her, and I got sick. And I got, the shits. And I got better, and then it came back, and I got better, and it came back, and Sierra once again said, go to the doctor. So the night before we left, I got a stool sample, and everything was, they tested like 4 things. Everything's cool, and then we left on the bike trip. And then I start getting these texts from the Department of Health, the U.S. Department of Health. They wanted to like quarantine me, and they said I had E. coli, and they said you have to wash your hands for 5 minutes every time you take. I said I'm in the desert, it's not going to have that using my drinking water.
Yeah, we are quarantined out here in the middle of nowhere.
So every time we go out and something, people say to us like, so why don't you quit? It's like, you don't just quit because you have E. coli or whatever, you just keep going because it's a long way from home and you put a lot of work into getting out there, so you just go through it. Yeah. But so we have that conflict that, how come you aren't going as fast? And it's like, because I'm ready to throw up or whatever. So, the karma comes back to him sooner or later.
Yeah, but it sounds like part of the secret is just being tough. You maybe just have different levels of toughness.
Well...
Or something.
I don't ever feel too tough out there.
Well, you just said how you...
I know, but I still didn't feel... I never felt tough. I don't feel tough at all.
But compared to the average person,
I guess, but compared to him, I don't feel tough.
Heat bothers you and stuff, but as soon as it cools down and the end of the day is there, it's like, well, I don't even feel tired.
I don't ever feel tired at the end of the day. I've never taken an Advil ever on any kind of bike trip or backpacking trip, so it isn't like I'm in pain, and I don't get tired. I just don't go as fast as him. So I'm writing a new book about circling back to the divide 25 years later. And it's like revisiting like how we are getting along with each other now, because when we were out there before, our kids were little and we were taking care of them. So now our adult children come out and they're like saying like, Mom and Dad, I'm sick, Dad, take care of her. So it's so everything is different now. And you'd think, Darren, I don't know if you're married or not, but you'd think that once you figure it out, it's the same for a while, and it's not. It keeps changing. So that's good, because then you learn, okay, so now this is going on, and how do we learn to get along with each other, and how do we be happy together because trips like that are stressful. Yeah. I mean, normal life and normal relationships are challenging, and then you go and try to cross the Continental Divide on a bike, and there's more challenges. So it's really, like the arena of life just intensified. So, I mean, we do fine. We like each other a lot after 36 years, but, we have discussions.
Yeah. What about traveling with kids? What are some of the secrets for doing that?
I think my kids are easier than my husband to deal with out there.
Well, the whole thing I found with the kids thing was, as a solo hiker or something, you can always push yourself and go fast if you're cold. And the thing is, with kids, you have to be really warm because you got to deal with your kids. So you can't go run into town or something. You have to...
You can't push like hypothermia.
Yeah, you need to be totally have your act together yourself so you can take care of the kids and make sure they're okay.
Yeah.
So
we used to push the envelope more before we had kids.
Right.
Yeah.
So
like we would stop and it's like, oh, I can't button my buttons. I must. This is hypothermia. But you could never do that because we had to have our act together for the kids. But they were never unhappy out there because we always took such good care of them. I mean, we never even used a Band-Aid the whole Continental Divide Trail. So the kids weren't hard. It was, he would have a hard time because.
It was a hard trip.
Well, it wasn't easy, but it wasn't because of the kids. The kids made it more work. We had 100 diapers with us, cloth diapers the first year, so that was a lot to deal with because Bryce used to crap about 10, 12 times a day.
In the middle of the mountains, in Colorado, you'd have to, in the middle of a lightning storm, stop and change
his
a diaper
with a golf umbrella with a 6-inch spike.
Things you got to take the raincoat off and the
he had
bibs
6, 7 layers of clothing
you
to get to his
down
diaper.
There and you'd find out it was a fart, and then you'd have to button it all up again and pack up, and it's like, oh my God, it's.
I just started sticking my finger in and then washing it because it was easier. Is this real or not? But the kids, it just changed their whole entire future life.
He just didn't go this fast. I think our average was 10 miles a day, which is kind of slow, but for hiking, that's not bad. Before you know it,
we had to stop every hour, but they played, slopped in creeks, climbed on rocks, ate.
Yeah.
They had fun.
Yeah. So talk about your books a little bit.
So my background's fine arts painting. I'm a landscape painter, and then when I hiked the AT 40 years ago, I just kept a journal and drew, and then I was advised to write a book about it because there weren't hardly any women back then. So I wrote and illustrated my first book called A Woman's Journey on the Appalachian Trail. It's been in print for 38 years straight. And then hiked the PCT and illustrated that one. And so I have 7 published books. I illustrated 4 of them, and now my son, Bryce, is illustrating them. And the newest one that just came out last fall is called The World is Our Classroom, How One Family Used Nature and Travel to Shape an Extraordinary Education. And there's a lot in it. There's about long-distance cycling because we did a lot with them and learned a lot while we were.
And what's the overall premise of the book?
It's for parents, grandparents, or anyone that wants a bigger life to try to figure out how to disconnect from technology and have more adventures, find ways to be in the natural world and travel. And so it's mostly about travel and adventure and learning along the way. Because I realized my kids were learning all these values and virtues while we were doing it, like perseverance and empathy and courage and things like that you're not going to learn inside 4 walls of a school. I mean, anyone would learn it if they go out and do adventures and travel and stuff like that. Plus it gives you the sense of understanding other people and other cultures when you do it around the world. Our kids went to 15 countries before they went to college, and we never stayed less than a month. Like we did the Camino de Santiago when they were 11 and 13 or something like that. It was their first long distance bike ride on their own without a tandem.
So it's not a book just for like homeschool.
Oh no, because my kids were in school for 7 years. When we took them out. Like we traveled 70. They missed 70 days a year when they were in public school. So. But I have one friend who doesn't have any kids, and he goes, "Do you think it would help me?" I go, "It would help anyone that wants a bigger life, because we were learning alongside them. So it isn't like it's to teach kids. It's to open your own mind to the bigger world out there."
But it's a big part is getting the kids out in nature and out in the world rather than
broaden their minds so that they can accept
sitting
people.
Looking at a screen,
Yeah.
Get out and hike and bike and
paddle and
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about what I do with my website and stuff is getting people that have never done any outdoorsy thing and hearing their stories, getting them out on the road and hearing like that they were setting up their tent for the first time, and like the crazy stories that just happened just from that alone, or sleeping outside for the first time ever. And and they've never done it before, you know.
Yeah.
For you guys who've spent so much time outside, and I've spent half my life sleeping in a tent probably. So it's normal for me, but for so many people, something like that.
I know you hear people and they go like, I'm done with sleeping on the ground. It's like the air mattresses that they have today that are this big are so comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, half the beds that you would get in a motel aren't as comfortable as an air mattress for backpacking. So it's like, what's so bad about sleeping in a tent?
Yeah.
I also have a blog
Yeah.
that I've been writing for about, 10 years, and I just pretty much, there's a lot in there about life in general. It's called The Cindy Ross Traveler. It's probably 300 different pieces that I've written. And there's different categories, but that's a good way to learn more about us. There's a lot in there about him that he doesn't even know about. He doesn't read it. I'll see friends and they're like, what does Todd say about that last blog, which was really hysterical, but it's like, he didn't see it.
Now he'll go read it, maybe.
No.
I think I've read 2 of them.
It's good I don't need his support, huh?
It's because when I come inside to read, I fall asleep.
You're done. Done for the day. Since my audience is a bicycle tourist, what advice or tips would you give someone who's like new to bike touring that's wanting to do it for the first time?
I would pick something really easy and safe. Like, we did the C&O Canal when Sierra was 1.5 and I was 6 months pregnant. And it's 187 miles, which, like we talked before, is slightly boring. But every 5 miles, we had a water pump and we went swimming in the Shenandoah River. And tons of good places to eat. And then if you had to bail, there's a train that parallels it so that you could just hop on the train to get back to your car. And so it was easy. You didn't have to deal with traffic, because that freaks out a lot of people for a long bike ride. It's like, oh my God, how do I navigate traffic? And it is disconcerting sometimes when, people are right here on you. So a trail like that is a good way to start, to learn how to bike pack without having to deal with the traffic. Because, we're not group people, so to go with, but we've never done any kind of like assisted, like sag wagon. Yeah. So we just can do always what we want to do. We stop when we want to stop. We go if we're not tired and it's not dark. We just keep going, and you can't do that in a group. So I would advise, and a part of what we love about this is that we're in charge, and it's the freedom and independence. So I wouldn't tell people to go with a group. I would find a friend or two and pick an easy trail like that's safe and hard to screw up on, and do something like that first.
Okay.
What do you think?
What's your tip?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, other than that, just know how to change a tire. Things don't break too quick on bikes. I guess if you got old junkers, that's the other thing. A lot of our bikes, we did trips the first few years. We didn't have big,
25-year-old bikes.
Yeah, we didn't have big, expensive bikes. I mean, the ones we got for the Divide were pretty nice, tough bikes.
That was the first time we got decent bikes our whole life.
But other than that, you can get by on bikes at,
$250 bike.
Yeah, and you can do stuff. I mean, they won't last forever, and
Ours lasted 20 years. We used to pack them up and ship them over to Ireland and rode for 2 months over there.
I mean, nice bikes are better, but if money is an issue, I wouldn't let that stop you. We started out with cheap panniers, and you get tired of them bouncing off and stuff, so you get better panniers the next time. But the cheap ones at least get you out there.
Yeah. Yep.
And don't wait if you have kids. Stick them in a trailer. Just put your whole car carrier right in. Sierra was sat in her little car seat, and we had all kinds of stuffed animals and toys on pieces of parachute cord in case she threw it overboard. She just reined it in, and she was 1, and she did 200 miles, and she was happy as could be.
Yeah, you could even do, I think we've done some bike trips where we pulled kid carrier the trailers and stuffed it full with their sleeping bags.
Yeah, after the kids got older. Yeah,
if you don't have a good bike with racks and panniers, and you have an old kid carrier, you can tow that behind you and at least get out there and play around and experiment with it before you invest in bikes and good panniers.
So many people, it seems, Darren, are the first thing they do is the gear, and it's like,
and to us,
you know,
that was
if you don't get out
least.
there. We had one friend who wanted to do the Great Divide Mountain Bike Trail with us. He spent like months watching videos on how to pack a bike, and I said, Bob, just go ride your bike and see if you like it. Well, he never came with us because he was spending all this time trying to like become an expert and what gear to buy. And he kept sending me links like, I'm not going to watch that stuff. I'm just going to go do it.
Because it's easier to watch a video and
you
know, buy stuff than it is to actually do it sometimes, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, before it gets dark, tell me one more time where people can learn more about you if they want to read your books or...
I would go to CindyRossTraveler.com. I have a website called TheWorldIsOurClassroomBook.com. But my website, Cindy Ross Traveler, can take you to every place.
Okay, great.